Dinner for shoes, please. Hello, and welcome to an episode of Dinner for Shoes. I don't know why I'm talking like a robot. Today, this will be our final episode of Earth Month, but not our last episode of Earth Month ever, because we will obviously do Earth Month episodes next year. And today's episode marks another milestone because it's the 30th episode of Dinner for Shoes, and I just like the number 30, so I guess that's why it's a milestone. Yes. Okay. Anyway, so I want to introduce you to who I'm going to be talking to on the podcast today. We're going to talk about some sustainable bridal brands that you should know about. These are by no means the only sustainable bridal brands you should know about, but it's a really good start, and it's who I recommend checking out. I want to apologize for my wet hair effect. I am in a rush today. I did not have time to wait for my hair to dry to record this episode, so we're going with the wet hair effect. And what else? So also we will have some food today, yet again provided in like video testing form. We're going to flash to my food segment again today, but we are talking about Bespoke Cakes. They are made by my friend Daniel. He's in the wedding cake business and he makes incredible cakes, and he also is very well known for his cookies, but he's sustainable too in the sense that he does, bespoke, customized bridal cakes. He doesn't like mass produce and then sell all his shit in a bakery somewhere and it goes to waste, creating food waste. He works with his clients one-on-one. And yeah, he's just a newcomer to the bridal cake biz, and right now it's kind of like wedding season. As you know, we're gonna have some more wedding season episodes coming up, like what to wear to weddings, and we're gonna do a whole episode on that. But for him right now, he's working with a lot of brides and grooms, going over to, their houses and doing cake tastings. So that is what my food segment is going to involve today. But let's talk about the shoes and the outfit behind the shoes before we dive into some of my favorite sustainable bridal brands. And you will hear from Brenna, who is the mastermind behind Nordeen. They are one of my favorite sustainable bridal brands. I had a wonderful conversation with Brenna, and she's so passionate about what she does. It was all kind of stimulated by her realization that the fashion industry just contributes so much waste to our environment all of the time. And that kind of like deterred her from being in the fashion industry at first. And then she was like, but what if I kind of take it from my own, approach, my own perspective, and I try to just use as sustainable materials as possible. She works with vegan brides who maybe would prefer one material over another if something isn't vegan. Everything is tailored to her brides and what they feel comfortable with. And some of her, she just released a new collection, so you'll see some of that during our conversation. But some of what she recently released, and well, actually all of her dresses are inspired by nature. They have this whimsicality to them where the bride literally still looks like herself, but almost transforms into this like natural creature. It's really cool. And you're going to get to see some examples of brides who have worn her dresses. So I'm really excited for you to get into that conversation. But first, okay, I said let's talk about the outfit behind the shoes about like 10 minutes ago now. Now my mouth is dry and we still have not started. So let's get into it. All right. So these ballerina flats, we recently talked about ballerina flats. Actually, ballet flats were the shoe of the last episode because they're just so in right now. The ones I wore in the last episode were my vintage Miu Mius. These are by M.Gemi. I love their shoes. They are so comfortable. What I think is really neat about these flats in particular, aside from just like the perfect off-white shade, right? They actually have like this crinkled leather effect. And that kind of just makes them edgier than like super femme, which is what you would think of when you think of like a classic ballet shoe, right? And the square toe, I think, contributes to that effect too. So really cool. They're very comfortable. comfortable. They fit my foot like a glove, no blisters, nothing like that. So definitely check them out. I do want to quickly say about M.Gemi, I just want to read a little bit off their website because they are furthering their furthering their, why can't I think of the word right now? They're furthering their initiatives, their goals, their, Nick, give it to me, like contributions to their, you want a determination, there's something towards sustainability. Their goals. He wants to go with goals. Let's go with goals. They're working on it is what I'm trying to say. And this is exactly how they approach their collections and how they release new product. So each week we release new limited edition designs by effectively speeding up the supply chain and building small batches of inventory more rapidly than typical manufacturing models. We've created limited surplus inventory, allowing us to keep our product out of landfills and in your closet at an accessible price point. So small batches is something we've been talking about in almost every episode of Earth Month. It's a really easy and effective way to break into the sustainable market. And M.Gemi is one of those footwear brands that's definitely doing it. They only use like the finest ingredients because shoes are food, which we know according to this podcast. No, they only use the finest leathers. They produce exclusively in Italy. And basically they really value their artisans that they work with. Okay, so the rest of my outfit. I'm just wearing classic vintage Levi's today, which I just feel like anything vintage, obviously, as we talked about in the last episode, re-wearing clothes, keeping clothes in your closet for a long time, which Levi's, like, even if you buy them new, they will become vintage because no one ever gets rid of their Levi's jeans. It's a crime to do that. You will end up in jail. So, I haven't worn like a plain simple outfit like this in a very long time, but this cashmere tank top is by Reformation. Reformation is one of the brands on my list today that we're going to talk about because did you know that they have wedding dresses? They have a whole bridal section now. It's been there for a while, so you probably aren't that shocked to hear me say that. You're probably like, Sarah, do you really think, like, we know. I know, but they, always are releasing new dresses, and Reformation is obviously a sustainable brand. We're going to talk a little bit about how sustainable they are and kind of like how they contribute their efforts. Efforts is the word I was going for. Efforts towards sustainability, furthering their efforts. Okay, so let's talk about, you're going to hear all about Nordeen in the interview. So I want to give Brenna the opportunity and the space to talk about her brand and what inspires her. So we're going to quickly go over my personal favorite sustainable bridal brands and ways to be sustainable when you're a bride, because there are some vintage resale sites you can look at as well. All right. So Nadia Manjarres produces all of her dresses. An all-woman team produces her dresses. They are in the north of Mexico. Now, her gowns, this is very, very interesting, and I think it's a great way to be sustainable that not a lot of designers in general think about. They are versatile in that they're modular and customizable so they can be reworn and transition, not just from like the ceremony to the reception, but she works with her brides to, after they wear their dresses, like help them find ways to maybe dye them so that it becomes a dress they can wear for another event in life. So she's all about prolonging the length of the garment, right? Which is huge. I think that that's awesome. Okay, another brand, Grace Loves Lace. This is an Australian brand. They have zero mass production, meaning they make what you need. They only produce when someone orders something. Again, that kind of goes back to the small batch approach. A lot of brands can't just do that, right? Like a shoe company that wants to sell shoes, they can't just make what is ordered. Sometimes like that process has to start in the background a lot earlier. However, that is the way Grace Loves Lace operates. They offer GRS fabrics that have been developed using 97% recycled materials. Okay, Christy Dawn. Now, Christy Dawn is this is more for like the casual bohemian bride. Let's say you're having a city hall wedding, but you're so boho and that's just your aesthetic. Like, I would definitely recommend checking out Christy Dawn. Not only do they have a pre-loved site, where you can shop pieces from past collections. They offer a trade-in program, meaning let's say you're done with your garment, you've worn it enough times, you can trade it in for something else, and you can shop what they call farm to closet, which is all made from regenerative cotton, alpaca, and silk. So they are also really upfront about what fabrics they're using on their site. You can read all about them on their page. Okay, Jenny Yu. Jenny Yu is like special to my heart because, how do I say this without giving anything away? My best friend is getting married and I'm a bridesmaid, and we were perusing Jenny Yu dresses as options. So TBD for that. But Jenny Yu is just a really awesome brand. So let's talk about it. So bridal crepe fabric is their like number one fabric that they use, and it's made with sustainable yarn, and it's produced in a way to protect the wood in the forest. They also partner with Fab Scrap to recycle and repurpose unused fabrics and donate their fabrics to the fashion class. This is so cool. The fashion class, which is a New York-based design school educating the next generation of fashion professionals. So like, imagine being in your own atelier and you have all this excess fabric and you're done with your collection and you go donate it to students who like, that's like so cool because you're like spreading the wealth. You're like, there's room for more bridal designers here. Like, come use my fabric and show us what you got. Like, I think that's a really neat sentiment. All right, Pure Magnolia. Their collections are made from natural fabrics such as silks and organic cotton. Since COVID, they also work on a case-by-case bridal basis, upcycling a mother's wedding dress, for example, or creating custom using all natural materials. They also try to offer styles that can be dyed and reworn after the wedding, so similar to Nadia. And, you know, they work with their brides, again, on a case-by-case basis. So if that's really important to a bride, which it should be to you, then you make sure that like your dress is not sitting collecting dust in the closet and there's a sustainable life for it after, right? Okay, Camparrot, they are ethically made in California. They're made in small batches and use sustainably sourced materials wherever possible. I would check them out if you're kind of like that chic bride who wants something a little different and unexpected, but simple. I hope that that makes sense. A reference, if you need like a more well-known bridal brand, but that they remind me of, is Danielle Frankel. Okay, Reformation, like my top. So, we only have one more after this, but working towards a climate positive status by 2025, and Reformation is super upfront about this on their website. If you go and check it out, they are very honest with, you know, their efforts towards sustainability. They use fabrics from recycled, regenerative, or renewable materials. They outline all of their plant-based, renewable, or regenerative materials on the site so that you can read details about how they're made and how they make sure their dyeing processes don't use up too much water and energy or release toxic byproducts into the environment. So Reformation has always kind of started that way, and they have like their cute little slogan about like the most sustainable thing is something, but like we're number two. Please help me. Now I need to look it up because it's like, you know, like you say something and you're like, you can't like not deliver it. I know it's their bio on Instagram, so I'm just going there. Being naked. How could I forget this? Being naked is the number one most sustainable option. We are number two. So wear Reformation, or, you know, do both. Like, I'm going to take off this top later and be naked. So I am being super sustainable today. Peace. All right. Finally, our last bridal brand on the list that I want to talk about. Not the last sustainable bridal brand on the list in general, but that we're talking about today is Anita Dongre. They make traditional Indian wedding clothing. Their embroidery is literally jaw-dropping. It's insane. They make traditional Indian wedding clothing, including lehenga and saris and gowns for weddings. They design, their design headquarters is in Mumbai. And interestingly enough, The building is eco-conscious because it's equipped to conserve energy. So I just think that's cool because it's like even where they're, dreaming up the ideas to make these incredible pieces, like they're in a sustainable, eco-friendly environment in that moment. They outline all the sustainable fabrics they use and their materials on their website if you're curious about it. And they put into practice a plastic waste program and upcycle the waste fabric generated in the manufacturing process into bags and masks that then go on to aid people who are in need, which is like taking it one step further and just really doing good. So I love that. Now, before you check out our cakes in a second, I just want to mention that there are plenty of sites that offer the option to resale and buy worn or vintage pieces that can work as your wedding dress. Some of my favorites. And you got to do the research here. And if you do want to be one of those brides who's wearing something vintage or buying something from a resale site, you need to constantly be looking, but you will find the one and it almost feels like fate when you find it. Vestiaire Collective and The Real, they have gems. You just got to keep looking, and you also have to trust the pictures and, make sure that whatever you're going to invest in, there's an option to return it if it doesn't work out for you, or that you can envision it being tailored in a certain way to your liking, right? Preownedweddingdresses.com is a place where brides can sell their wedding dresses and brides searching for wedding dresses can purchase those dresses at a lower cost. Still White, Borrowing Magnolia, The Loop, Vow to Be Chic, those are all similar sites. You can also rent wedding dresses on Vow to Be Chic, which is really cool. So let's say I'm only going to wear this once. I'm not going to try to repurpose this dress or dye it or, break it down and change it into something else, like a little white dress. I'm going to rent this dress. And that is just all to say that if your wedding dress is in a box in the attic, no one has attics in this area where I am, New York, but if you live in a home that's not an apartment, again, sometimes I think what I do, let me just go back. You know how last episode I was doing that thing with my fingers and I was just like, oh, what are they doing? And then this and sometimes I think I see me doing it in the camera and I'm looking to make sure I'm centered and I like the look of this and it's a calming sensation. So I just keep doing it. That's what just happened there. All right. So if you have an attic, or a garage, or a storage unit, wherever you are in the world, or if your dress is just in your closet, wherever it is, if it's collecting dust and you are not going to wear it again, do something with it. What are you doing? Just that one little move can A, help another bride, help another bride. I took sign language, but only for a couple semesters. A, help another bride. B, yeah. B, help another bride who is looking for a dress. And now I just want to keep doing the letters. C. No, just honestly donate your wedding dress. Donate it, do something with it. That one little act will help you be a more sustainable person. If it's the one thing you do this Earth Month, don't let your dress collect dust. Or hey, repurpose it. Do something that shows that you want to give it a new life. Okay, now let's talk about Daniel. So Daniel Kernel makes cakes and cookies. He's very well known for his cookies, but he also loves cakes and he makes incredible wedding cakes. You can look at his website. All the pictures on there speak for themselves. We are going to probably have Daniel on another episode, but I want you to see my face when I am trying his cake because it's really so good. I like that he is sustainable in his own way by obviously just working on a case-by-case basis. I know a lot of bridal cake designers do that, but then they have, like I mentioned before, their own bakery on the side or whatnot. Daniel really pays a lot of attention to the bride that he's working with. He values telling a story in his cake and it shows through his craftsmanship and his art. So take a look at our food. Let me just clear my plate. All right, go ahead. We're playing a game with the cake. We've reviewed the whole cake tasting. Excuse this hair. this whole cake tasting card. And I'm going to have Nick close his eyes and I'm going to feed him one of them and he's going to have to guess which flavor it is. You should be able to get this. You remember, I can like retell you. All right. Are your eyes really closed?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you get all flavors. Okay, open. Eat it.
The raspberry one. Or the strawberry.
Pistachio rose. Where do you even see strawberry? Oh, yeah, no, you got it. Because you said soaked strawberries.
Yeah.
That is. You got it. Yay. Okay. Let me just like make sure I know what they are before you do me. Okay.
Right.
I don't. Oh my god, that's so good. Bar night?
I don't know. How do you know?
It was this one?
Yeah.
This is definitely it. Yeah.
I want to try this one.
Because it has malt pretzel crunch in it. Oh my god. That's amazing. We're going to do this with all of them.
Oh, that was so good.
Right?
That's definitely bar night.
We'll take one of these full.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed the cake. Unfortunately, you couldn't really enjoy it through the camera, although I do think that like with the incredible capabilities of AI, that should be an option one day, like to be able to try what someone's eating through the camera, but I mean, that's a different episode. So you now get to listen to my interview with the lovely Brenna of Nordeen and hear about her bridal experience.
So I think like my journey from this or to this has been kind of a long time coming. Like I knew from a very young age I wanted to be a designer. I always loved weddings. Like I knew I wanted to have my own brand, and like weddings and design and fashion have always kind of been like intertwined in what I do. Right in the middle of school, I was like studying to be a fashion designer and I felt kind of burnt out. So then I kind of did a summer where I was interning for a luxury event planner and was like, maybe wedding planning is what I want to do. And so that kind of was like my introduction into weddings and like what that world entailed. But then I was also going to school for design and was like, I want to be a wedding dress designer. And so it was kind of like this all-encompassing like full circle situation.
Mm-hmm.
I then decided to do and finish like my degree and enter the world of fashion. But it was funny because even though I interned for a wedding planner and for like wedding dress designers, I got into fashion and started doing ready to wear.
Okay.
And I kind of like put that on the back burner and just kind of like was open to these other opportunities and learned about fashion through these different, you know, lenses and perspectives and things like that. And then that path was what got me into sustainability. So it was like, then I had a few years down the road, this existential moment where I was like, the fashion industry is terrible for the environment. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. It's so wasteful. But then I had this opportunity to be like, wait a second, maybe I can make a change instead of just like running away from it. So that's like, I started a brand with the company that I was working for at the time, and my design director and I were on the same page about doing something environmentally friendly and better for the environment. And so we launched that, and then I got married. So like I got married and I was searching for my wedding dress, and I was like, well, I don't like anything, and I want something that speaks to me as a person. And I was getting married in the Colorado mountains, and I wanted something that was simple but still made an impact and also was like in harmony with the environment that I was going to be in. I was going to be 13,000 feet like elevation on top of this mountain, and I didn't want something that felt like it was fighting with that scenery.
Yeah.
Like, or beating, things like that. And also would like be respectful to like this place that I was celebrating and like my love and like who I was as a person. And so it was actually the day after my wedding. I originally was going to design my own wedding dress, and then I didn't want the stress. I was like, I'm doing so much. So I eventually did find a dress deep, deep, deep in like my search. But it was the day after my wedding, and I was talking to my wedding photographers, and I was like, do you feel like this is something that's missing like in your realm of the wedding industry? Because they're adventure photographers. So this was when like elopements and getting married outdoors was like on the up and up.
Yeah.
And I was like, they loved the way that my piece was interacting with the wind. And I was like, I feel like there's so much more that can be done with this silhouette wise and just like story wise and ethos and just like emotional connection to a brand. And they're like, yeah, like, let's do it. And so it was Cedar and Pines, my wedding photographers. Like, honestly, I give them credit all the time for like lighting the fire under me to be like,
wow.
let's do this. Because they're like, if you have pieces, we'll totally support you. We're going to Morocco, let's shoot them. And so that's kind of how like my Prelude collection came together. It was just 4 very simple pieces. Like there's a look in there that's still my best-selling piece that people love and resonate with from like 4 years ago. So I wanted to create pieces that were timeless, people will love throughout the years, like interact with the environment and the wind. And that's kind of like how I got started. It kind of just like snowballed from there.
Yeah. I mean, that is such a natural progression. And I love how much it like relates to something that you went through. I feel like that's like the best way to start a project or a brand. So I love that for you. Now,
and there's like,
I was just going to ask if you still work with like, I know that that's the same photographer that you sent that did your headshot, but do you still work with Cedar and Pines for like your lookbook imagery or just like with the brand?
We collaborate together like all the time. I always joke with Megan, like, it's like Givenchy and Audrey Hepburn, like we're just like that creative partnership and that synergy. We just like understand each other when it comes to all of this. And like, she's always able to capture my vision because she just like gets it. So there's so many like style shoots we collaborated on. She's actually shot a couple of brides that I've dressed, and then this new recent collection I just launched, they helped me photograph the lookbook.
I love that.
So
that's awesome.
It's been really, really great.
There are so few sustainable bridal brands out there. So what you're doing is like very, very unique. And I think that's awesome. But you go a step further where your designs are literally inspired by nature. So how do you evolve that idea from collection to collection? Like when you're starting on something new, where do you go for inspiration to make sure that the pieces still have that like DNA?
I am inspired by nature because it comes from an emotional place. So before even being inspired by nature, like I have this visceral emotional connection to like the environment and like the feeling of like wanting to connect with it and protect it and preserve it, which is why I like say I had this existential crisis. I think anyone who feels this way, like I got to the point where I couldn't even go and buy a bottle of shampoo without knowing that something about it was better for the environment, whether it was like the toxins, like the chemicals the shampoo itself was made of, or like the plastic that the bottle was made of, or like the company was B Corp certified or something. Like something about it needed to be better.
Yeah.
And that is like an emotional thing. That's like an emotional experience. So before even being sustainable, you have to be emotionally connected to like the product and the story that it tells.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I think about new inspirations or like when I'm going to be inspired by next or like whatever I'm connecting to, I always kind of circle back to like, how am I emotionally feeling?
Yeah.
Because just being inspired by nature can be kind of redundant, you know, like it's like Miranda Priestley in Devil's Wears Prada, like florals for spring.
Yeah.
You don't want to just like do that. I always want to take it a step further. And my initial collection, right, and the feeling of like interacting with the environment was because when someone's wearing the gown, they have this emotional connection to like that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the new collection that I just presented, I I took a break, right, between my previous collection and this new one. And I was going through a lot of things emotionally, like personally and professionally, a lot of hardships I was working through and a lot of processing that I was doing. Um, and I did feel stuck for a long time. But when I was going through that process, I kept thinking about like fluidity and like the idea of going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that naturally just brought me to this idea of water and like the different forms it takes, how it can be really calm, but it can also like be crashing and be really angry and like waves and rip tides and also be like trickling. And like no matter what, water will always find a way to get through, like seeping through a rock or gliding through over a surface. Like it's always going to get through. And I thought that was a really beautiful metaphor for life and like what I was going through at the time. And so I kind of took that idea, and even though it was like a tough thing to like start designing again and then figure out that it's just like going with the flow and pushing through is like what you need to do.
Yeah.
So that was like my emotional connection that then tied in with like nature. And I just think nature and just like in general, it's what we live through every day. Like the natural cycle of life, balance and this harmony is such a huge metaphor for just like how we go through life living day by day. So kind of just tying all of that together and me being vulnerable with my designs and being emotional about it will always allow someone else to emotionally connect to it as well. And so I think as I move forward, I'm always going to kind of carry that through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can easily be like, yeah, flowers are going to be my next inspiration, but what about it that's deeper? Like what about it do I love that's deeper and is making me feel inspired by it in an emotional level?
That makes so much sense. And I think that that's like, I mean, that's the way everyone should get their inspiration. Like what is currently affecting them? Because like your best art comes when you actually have an emotional tie to it. So that makes so much sense.
Exactly.
And it kind of is like the perfect segue into the next question, because I'm curious, what do you want? Like, let's say I am looking for my wedding dress, I'm getting married. What do you want a shopper to take away from coming to like your website or discovering your brand, whether it's on Instagram or a dress in a showroom? Like, what do you want their feeling to be that kind of distinguishes your brand from other bridal brands on the market?
I want them to feel understood. Like I want them to feel understood and represented and like heard.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the wedding industry can be redundant, or a lot of it can be like same.
Yeah.
But which is fine. Like there's definitely people or like a clientele that connects with that as well. But there's also a lot of people who want something different or want to be seen in a different way and don't go the traditional route or don't go kind of mass market or don't go, what's mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an avenue for that or a place for that needs to exist as well, a safe space for that. So I always want, first and foremost, for clientele to feel heard. I want them to feel like they can tell me their story and then give me the trust and that they can trust me to like tell that story. Whether or not that's through like a silhouette that already exists in the collection, or it's like they love it, but like let's work to figure out what makes it uniquely them, or let's do a custom design. Like I'm always open to hearing what people like and what they want and what they're looking for, because I think hearing other people's voices, like again, on an emotional level, how they feel is what's always going to inspire me.
Yeah.
So like,
totally.
Even I always also tell clients, if you come in and you like hate the design, tell me. I want to know. I'm not going to be offended. Like I want to make something that you love, but there's clearly something that you're drawn to in my brand and my story and my values that you align with. So like, as long as we can like have that synergy, we can always make something happen. I think that's what I always want clients to feel like.
Yeah. So
can take it.
So on that note, do you have any memorable either moments with a client or just experiences? Maybe it was a challenge that kind of like sticks with you and it like, affects how you have moved forward since then.
So I actually had a recent client who she bought one of my favorite pieces from like the very first like prelude that I released, and it was the Mona gown, and she wore that, and she was gonna pair it with the cape that it comes with, and it wasn't what she initially like wanted. She came to me, she like even before she got engaged, she was like, I love this piece and I want to wear this look, and that's just gonna be it. And so when she came back to me and she was like, okay, so this is gonna be it, and like I'm gonna wear the cape, I kept being like, are you sure? That's not what you like emotionally connected with at first. And she was like, well, my mom loves it. I was like, okay, yeah, your mom loves it, but like what about you? Like,
Yeah.
I want you feel the way you imagined to feel like on that day. And she kind of like went back and forth, and she's like, no, Brenna, you're right. Like, okay, nix the cape, and she ended up pairing it with the Winola coat. And afterwards, I always like to get feedback from my clients to be like, how did you feel in the process? And what she said, I was like, wow, like you really understood, like not just like the surface level value and story of my brand, but like you actually felt it. And she was like, I feel like your dresses are made for powerful humans. Like the dresses and the attire stands on their own, but they elevate the wearer.
Yeah.
Like the wearer wears the garment, and it's not the other way around. And I feel like a lot of the times, like people are so excited to wear these amazing pieces and like awesome fashion for their wedding day, but it ends up wearing them.
Yeah.
And it needs to be like the other way around. Like like it needs to elevate you and how you feel. And like she was just like, yeah, it just made me feel like me, and like I was just like superpower human on this day, and I just felt amazing, and I was like, yes, like so that was like a really memorable moment, and I think it's something like that I definitely want to carry forward with like anybody that I dress. And, like,
Yeah.
I want that feeling because it's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's dive into sustainability in bridal, because obviously there might be a lot of people who don't even know that sustainable bridal brands exist. So sustainability looks different for everyone, every designer. How do you go about making sure that you are being as eco-conscious as possible, whether it's with your materials or the way your business works? Let us know.
Okay, so I'm gonna try really hard not to like get on my soapbox with sustainability, and like with that, first and foremost, like the word sustainability or like sustainable just makes me like cringe. Because I feel like it's so heavy, and there's so much expectation around like what it should be and what it should look like, and I think a lot of people take it to an extreme. And so with me, first and foremost, I always say like the way I approach it is simply by being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to be honest with you about what I'm doing. I'm not going to hide anything, or I'm going to do my best not to hide anything. And it's a conversation.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like there's so many ways to be sustainable. And so it's about finding what's important, because it's impossible for anyone or anything to be 100% sustainable. But if you're honest and you approach things with balance, like that is the most sustainable that you can be.
Yeah.
And so obviously eventually I want to get to like, you know, being way more sustainable, way more inclusive and all of this stuff, but you have to start somewhere. And so where I chose to start is with my materials and like with my production. So one way to approach environmentally friendly, responsible materials is using natural. So I started with that. So I work mainly with natural materials, silk, wool. For my new collection, I did introduce some other fibers, simply because, you know, I need texture, I need to introduce new materials. But I work with mills in Italy that have like responsible practices baked in their production process. And so I think it's all about like, okay, yeah, maybe this fiber isn't 100% sustainable, but the process that is being done to create it has less waste. There's like water management. The production facilities use solar panels, or like there's less chemicals or more responsible chemicals used in the production process. This is all like, I feel like people don't realize baby steps to like the bigger picture. And then in addition to that, I make everything domestically. So everything's made in LA and New York. It's not made in like, fast fashion, sweatshop environments. The sample room I work with in LA is all like women owned, women employed. So it's like responsible in that sense also. Like I always talk about who makes my stuff. It's all, everything is listed on my website. It's all transparent and I'm honest about it. And I'm always open to the conversation, right? I've also had people who came to me and they're like, oh, we love your responsible practices, but like I'm vegan and like silk is not okay. And I'm like, okay, like totally understand that. If that's important, there are silk options out there that are pea silk, that treat the worms with no harm. It just takes a longer production time. Like I'm open to it. If that's important to you, let's have the conversation. Let's see what we can do. I hope that answered your question.
Totally, like beyond. I love
like
that.
I've been on this like roll, and I could just like keep going, and I'm just like,
no. That makes so much sense. And like one of my last questions is about how the bridal industry in general can make like these small steps to start being just more conscious of like their carbon footprint. So I feel like you gave some great jumping off points, but having been in the bridal industry for as long as you have, is there anything else, even if it's maybe like not wedding dress design, but are there any other ways you can imagine like the fashion industry or the bridal industry being more aware?
Yes, I think number one thing is like, let's produce less. I don't think we need, 2 collections for bridal. I don't think we need that many per year.
Yeah.
It already takes 9 months for a client to get their gown, and by the time they get their gown, there's 3 new things out. Like, are they even gonna love what they got in the first place? So it's like, give the styles more of a lifespan, let them live longer, and like let's uplift that, and they will become timeless because we continue to love them. I mean, I still love things that existed 5 years ago, and I'm like, wait, I want to wear that, but like it's irrelevant now. So I think in general it's like produce less, like then we can also be more intentional with our designs. We can make slower decisions and really put a lot more thought behind the materials that we're choosing, the details that we're doing, everything that goes into a design, instead of like always like fast paced, like go situation. And so that is definitely something I think the wedding industry can do. And something else that I'm trying to bring forward is making my collections connect with each other. So like there are pieces I designed for my new collection that work back to things that I did previously, and it almost kind of revamps them, like breathes new life into them. It looks like a completely new piece, and like that is a way to carry things forward and make something old new again.
Yeah. I completely agree. And like when you were talking about, the brands that do produce a lot, and I can like think of them off the top of my head, and they're maybe putting out 2 bridal collections a year. It doesn't like, I think I respond most to the brands that only have those small collections, or like you're saying, they produce something that looks like a design they did, 3 or 4 years ago, but it's just like a little different, but it still speaks to their DNA. Like to me, that's more impactful than producing and like doing every single trim and embellishment that's like hot now, So I think that just is more aesthetically pleasing anyway. So I like that. I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, and I think it's a way to make sure you like things don't get forgotten.
Yeah.
So you can also produce so much, and it's like so much intake that people even forget certain things existed.
Absolutely.
So like that turnover is way too fast, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, so my final question for you is just, and this could be, you haven't even thought this far yet, but what do you think you want to see for the evolution of your brand within the next like 10 years, or even what's coming this year?
I want to elevate it. I want to bring it forward. I want to experiment more with sustainable materials, or like responsible materials. What can be done, like, and even just not fiber wise, but just like taking materials that already exist and elevating them in different ways, manipulation, things like that. I definitely want to be more inclusive with size. I think as a small brand, it's really hard to like get there, just like financially,
Yeah.
with all of the money that you put into a brand already, because it's like a whole other stage of fitting. But I want to get to that point because I think inclusivity is really important to me, and I'm approaching it from different aspects, but that's definitely like the next step. Like 5 years from now, and get to that point where I can make that offering and really stay true to my whole sense of like being inclusive to everybody. So that's definitely really important to me. And I think just continuing to break barriers and boundaries and offer something different than what's traditionally offered. Think about different silhouettes, different, you know, details, and maybe like questioning what a wedding dress is. It's just like, it can mean different things. And one thing I did this season was I had a jumpsuit, but then it had this overlay that like turned it into, is it a jumpsuit or is it a gown or is it like, what is it? And just like being able to offer that newness and like a different perspective to the industry.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And I don't know, I'm a huge advocate for just like, let's think of it from a different lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so great. Well, I am so excited to see what is to come. Not one cat has been in this episode. Fuck. I just realized that. Trish, do you want to be in it? You just looked at me like, no way, but I think I'm going to do it. Sit. Come on. Sit. 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 Oh, we gotta fall. We gotta fall. Okay. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Brenna. I learned so much about the bridal world that I just want to marry my cat now in a little white dress. I love her. How do you not want to marry her? She's so cute. You're so cute. You look great on camera. Yeah. Okay. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your friends about Dinner for Shoes. Thank you for spending Earth Month with us. I hope you enjoyed our special guests. I can't wait to have on other special guests next year. Happy 30th episode. Bye.